Hello, I'm Jen from Porterness Studios, and I create jewelry for the contemporary yarn connoisseur. I would like to show you some of my designs and my process as well. We're going to go to downtown Los Angeles, pick up some casting, and then we're going to come back to the studio and finish it up for you. So come on, let's go. I use the lost wax casting process to create my jewelry. It's been around for about 5,000 years. I create my shapes in two ways. One is carving it out of wax, and the other is using organic materials. You can see the rings here on a casting tree, and this is what the rings look like finished in sterling silver. The other way I create my designs is with a 3D modeling program. Then I have my designs printed in a castable wax. Then Jack, my 3D printer, takes my wax prints to my caster for casting. And when the jewelry is finished being cast, I pick them up and head to the studio for some hand finishing. Alright, let's head downtown to pick up some casting. I'm lucky enough to live in a city where there's public transportation. Most people think LA public transportation isn't that great, but I find it adequate. I love going downtown to the jewelry district because it's located in the old theater and banking area, and a lot of it was built in the 20s. The bus drops me off in front of this building, which happens to be one of my favorites. This is another one of my favorite buildings. I dream of having a studio here someday. It's the old Warner Brothers office building that they used in the 20s. Here's a view from the Warner Brothers building. The gentleman who makes my mold for my jewelry has a studio here. And this is the building where my 3D printer is and also my caster. Let's go check it out. The bottom floor of all these buildings is filled with jewelry vendors and casting houses above. Let's go upstairs. Once you're upstairs in any of the buildings downtown, everything starts to look alike. If you don't know where you're going, it's hard to find anything. It's good to have someone to show you the ropes before you get started. I was lucky enough to have a friend and a fellow jeweler to guide me through the downtown system. And here's what my jewelry looks like fresh from the caster. It's pretty rough and it needs a lot of work. One of the first things I do is put the jewelry in a tumbler that vibrates, along with some rough media to take down some of the high points left over from casting. This also helps remove some of the print lines that was left on the wax after the 3D printing. Then the jewelry vibrates here for several hours. Once it's finished, we head to the bench to remove the sprue with our tiny little sander. The vertical lines you see on the face of the ring are left over from the 3D print and need to be removed. Now for some finer polishing, and then once we're finished, we take the jewelry to the pin finisher, which will put a nice shine on all the jewelry. There's a magnet at the base of the pin finisher that creates these metal fingers the jewelry rubs against and creates a fine finish. Add some water, cleaning solution, and turn it on. The jewelry will move around in the pin finisher for about 30 minutes. Alright, I'll admit it, I added just a little too much cleaning fluid to this batch. But I wanted the jewelry extra shiny and clean for you guys. And here's the knit necklace all finished. My mother, who's addicted to knitting, inspired my first yarn-related creations. This sterling silver button was one of the first things I made for her. I thought it was being clever making this button double-sided. I didn't realize that making a 9-pound button is not really that effective for most knitting projects, especially for someone who likes to knit lace like my mother does. My grandmother taught me how to crochet when I was young, so I had some understanding of yarn addiction. Once I learned a little bit of knitting, I branched out into shawl pins. I definitely see myself more as an indie dyer and knit designer fangirl. Jewelry design keeps me busy, so I expect to be in Scarfland for some time. Oh, but my yarn addiction is real. Nothing pleases me more than buying, hoarding, and photographing yarn. And don't even get me started on making the perfect yarn cake. I truly love making jewelry for the yarn community because of the inspiration between the yarn, the colors, the dyers, and the knitwear designers. The yarn community has inspired our sterling silver stitch marker necklaces in a variety of styles. I have stocking knit stitch inspired rings, knitting needle inspired designs. I have 14 karat gold earrings. Most designs can be made into yellow, white, or rose gold at special request. We have new work. This is our Knitting is Our Superpower ring. It has knitting needle and yarn ball motifs. We have a sterling silver I Spy Knitting in My Eye stitch marker necklace where you can remove all the stitch markers and wear the necklace as is or attach the stitch markers for your knitting needs. Here's the new stockinette stitch inspired chevron necklace. We have a new design for our sash ring. A sash ring can be attached to any knitted garment. We have a couple patterns on our website. This one was from my mother, Carol Nina Knits, and we have another one from Bunny Muff. Here is the new I Spy Knitting in My Eye spirit necklace. One of my favorite things is to design new jewelry, so I'm constantly updating the site where you're going to find knitting jewelry, favorites, and one-of-a-kind pieces. Thank you for spending your time with me and allowing me to be inspired by your lovely community.